the transcript option because when it printed off, I get to see how often I use verbal fillers like and in painful evidence. All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Kelly Young. I'm the Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs, Academic Affairs, and a little bit of everything in between. One of my jobs when I have the faculty affair hat on is that I oversee the P&T process along with Robin Collins. And so I've got a few notes that I'll discuss the process for both promotion to associate and promotion from associate to full for teaching faculty. Much of the elements and things that I will talk about today are similar, but the real challenge for all of you as faculty, as for us as well, is that this is a brand new process. This year was the first year that we've had people go up under this promotion process, and we don't know the outcomes of those files yet. So we may learn definitely learned some things this year, and we'll probably learn a few more things as the year closes and we learn the results of the promotion cases that went to the university. But one important theme for all the faculty to take away from today is that there are many paths to promotion. Our teaching faculty in this college carry some significant service loads, and you all do some really amazing work. And there is no singular standard for excellence, no singular exemplar, and we do not compare cases to determine if somebody is worthy for promotion. So it's honestly a bit of a choose your own adventure as to how you put together your promotion file and the argument that you're going to advance for why you deserve promotion. And this flexibility should not scare you. I know there are some systems at other universities where they have like point totals. And if you go to 3 conventions and present and you serve on 6 committees and you write something that equals this many points and ta-da, you have promotion. But Wayne State doesn't operate that way for a variety of reasons, but I think the flexibility in this instance is very useful because not everybody goes to conferences, not everybody does research, not everybody does the same sort of service, not everybody teaches the same way. And so you get to control your narrative and argument as to how your career is developed in a way that's worthy of promotion. So that you really do have quite a bit of say in how you want to present yourself. Your files for promotion to either rank are based on your choice of 2 out of 3 metrics. Everybody's required to present evidence of excellence in teaching, but there is a choice on the other 2 items, which is either your service or your creative and research activity. And in the Smart Path system, that I'll talk about a bit in a bit. This is the software that we use to process all of your files and pass them from department to college to university. It'll ask you to note which of the 3 areas you're wanting to be considered for promotion. And this tends to raise a question of, well, wait, I do a little bit of all 3 of those things, and I'll address that kind of later in my discussion, but you do have to officially designate either service or creative research activity. And as I said, teaching is automatically required. Don't be intimidated. Another note beyond sort of those metrics is do not be intimidated at all to ask for help from your chairs, your faculty mentors. You can ask the college. We want you to succeed, quite honestly. We've invested energy and time into all of our faculty. Many of our teaching faculty have been at this university for a long time, and as I said, have incredible careers. And so we do not want this to be a mystery. We don't want it to be confusing, although inevitably it will feel confusing at points. But please reach out, ask for examples, advocate for yourself. Nobody will want to hide information from you. And so definitely feel free to ask. It will not bother anyone if you do so. One other, I guess, a final note here is it takes a lot of time to prepare your promotional materials. You should definitely start sooner rather than later in drafting materials. I would argue you should start getting that ball rolling now if you plan to go up for next year, because during the summer we have to get your materials out to reviewers to review your information, and so we actually have a fairly tight window before May 1st when ideally we get that information out to folks. And so do not wait until the 11th hour, not only just to get it done, but also you should give yourself an opportunity and time to send your materials to your faculty mentor, to your department chair, and anyone else who's willing to look at your documents. The one thing that I'll talk about later is that your documents will go in front of multiple audiences. They will not just be experts in your discipline or just people from your department. And so you need to write your documents in a way so that folks in your college but are not part of your department understand what you're doing. You need to write it so that people that aren't part of your discipline, even within your department, understand it. And more importantly, once it gets to university level, we have bioengineers, we have medical doctors, we have all sorts of different and disciplines viewing this information. And so you need to write your materials on the assumption that folks will not know a particular acronym. They will not understand what the significance of a particular event, professional event might be. They may not understand why your studio operates in a similar way to a laboratory, for instance. And so you need to make those connections for your audience. Using the agenda that I had for this meeting in the packet that got sent out, just as a quick overview of the process, all of your materials, once they are gone out for review, they will come back and go to your department P&T committee for review, and that'll happen in about mid-fall. Then your chair will review, I guess it's early fall for the P&T committee. Mid-fall is for your chair, who will write their letter. Then it goes up to the dean's office, where the college P&T committee will then review your materials along with the recommendations from your chair and your P&T committee. Once it leaves that committee, it goes to the dean for review, and that really happens late December, early January. The college P&T committee meets in late November and runs into December before we get our work done. And then the university review happens during this semester in the winter. And we usually hope by the time of the spring assembly that we host in the college that we have great news to share with folks about everyone's promotion, but that doesn't always happen. And so the point here is not only to illustrate what processes you have to go through, but that it's a very long process. And there will be points in which you don't hear information about the status of your file, but that's normal. And so when it leaves your department, you'll get notification that your file has been advanced to the college. When it leaves the dean, I'll notify you that it's left the college. And then you will get notification eventually about the status beyond the college. But there will be periods of time where you don't know anything and no one else knows anything about it. And so don't panic about the lack of information. The documents, there are several documents in the packet that I sent out that you will need for applying for promotion. There's the college P&T calendar and deadlines. By March 1st, there's 2 documents that you need to handle, which is the notice to intent to apply, which you fill out, it goes to your department, then it comes to the college. And then there's an acknowledgement of your meeting with the chair to discuss your factors, the university and your department's factors, if they have factors for teaching faculty. And then and that document stays within your department. But I've also provided you guidelines and instructions on the P&T packet and the P&T cover sheet. I'm going to go through some of those right now, but I'm going to combine the P&T calendar and procedure and guidelines documents so that I'm not just reading straight from those documents, but I highlight some important information for you. So as I'm talking, you might want to refer to that packet and kind of look through some of the material. But as I've already mentioned, what you need to do by March 1st, complete those 2 forms. They're very short, so this doesn't take much time. And hopefully you've already started those or been informed of those documents in your department. In the months of April through May, or to May, actually, the department will generate a list of evaluators. In this process, there must be a minimum of 3 evaluators, and one of those people must be outside of Wayne State. So you have 2 people that are internal to the university at a minimum, 1 outside of it. The FAQ section of the packet I sent explains a bit more about their qualifications and what rank they must be. But 2 important things is, one, that you as a faculty member really don't do a lot in the decision of who's going to evaluate your packet. You do get to strike 1 or 2 names on the final list that the department creates. It'll be a list much longer than the group of people who will actually evaluate your file. In the end, you'll never know who evaluated your file because that's confidential information, but you will see sort of the main list. You'll get to strike 1 or 2 names after consulting with your chair. And then the chair will send out letters to those evaluators asking them to review your materials. And there's an example evaluation letter in the packet that I sent. You can see sort of what things the chair asked for. One additional important item about evaluators for you as faculty to understand is that you need to be very transparent with your department about your relationship to these evaluators. And it can be really tricky for internal evaluators because you may know a lot of people on campus depending how long you've been at Wayne State. And so the standard is that people need to be at an arm's length. Now, that doesn't mean that they've never heard of you or ever met you. That can happen. You can be a social acquaintance, but that you should not have done any sort of research or a major project or done significant service with those people in a way that you have something beyond just sort of an acquaintance relationship. And so that's sort of a key standard and something that you need to notify your chair about. And that's something that in the college we check that information when the letters come in from evaluators. And so that needs to be handled before, because if we find out that you are best friends with somebody, we may not be able to use that letter. And so you want to be transparent with your department. Let's see. And typically they have about 6 names that they request letters from. It just depends on who says yes. And a lot of times they may say no simply because they're busy or not available, but it's not necessarily because they don't want to review your file. In the calendar that I provided in the packet, it does give a later date for teaching faculty to submit their materials to their department, but I would strongly recommend that you talk to your department chairs. Last year, because this was a brand new process, we gave people more time to put together their promotion materials because it caught people off guard. But it really makes it hard for your chair to get materials out to evaluators and back in a timely fashion. And so they really need summer to do that. So I suggest submitting everything by May 1st. But again, consult your chair on what is doable and what they want you to do. Now that I've talked about the meeting agenda items, now I'm going to talk about the reviewer materials, and these are the materials that get sent out to the reviewers of your packet. And for everyone that's a teaching faculty member, there's 4 to 5 total items. And if you do creative and research, there's another 2 items. So most folks, I think about 98% of the files that went up this year, that's not a precise number, but I think everyone but 1 went up for teaching and service. And so for those folks, they just had 4 to 5 items that they had to deal with by May 1st. And so the first item that everybody needs, regardless of kind of what the two out of three things you are going up for promotion for, is that you must have your Wayne State professional record. And it must follow the university format. This should not be a personal CV or some sort of alternative format. I know it can be frustrating for folks to use the Wayne State sort of bland professional record, but the provost office will send back your alternative version of a university professional record if it doesn't follow the correct format. So it's really important that you follow that format. Another thing that we're learning is that teaching faculty often don't receive much annual feedback about their professional records. We're trying to improve that process through mentoring processes, but you should definitely seek feedback on your professional record to make sure that it's following the format that we would expect of tenure track or tenured faculty members. Your professional record needs to be signed and dated. Almost any official process where we ask for a professional record, it requires that it be signed and dated by you. And if you're going up for creative or research, do not list things in your professional record as publications unless you have an email or some other documentation that says they are in the process of being published or presented. This is not the area where you put like your wish list of future projects. Unless you have evidence that it's just about to drop and that it's in the process of being published, do not include it on your professional record. The next item that everyone needs to submit is a personal statement. This is a maximum of 5 pages. And in my opinion, this is your most important document. You should spend a lot of time on this and give this to folks to review, because this is a document that is really important to all the multiple audiences that will see your packet. This is your narrative that explains how your career has developed in teaching and your second area, whether it's service or creative and research. And it explains how your work has developed over time and where it's headed in the future, which is really what your reviewers are looking to understand and to evaluate. And you can answer the question of what's the central aim of your work? How does it all connect? And you can really paint a beautiful picture of your career and why you care so much about all the things that you've done. It's your statement. And like I said, you have control over how you paint this picture. But as I said, it's 5 pages total, and you need to stick to that limit, unfortunately. And this should not be your teaching philosophy. That is put in the next document that I'm going to talk about, but this is about your career, how it's developed over time. And another important thing is that you should talk about the 2 areas that you are going up for promotion at. So if you're going for teaching and service, your document should talk about your teaching and your service and how they've developed and define your career. Or if you're going up for creative research, that should be part of your narrative along with your discussion of your teaching. And the FAQ provides some more explanation, the difference between this document and the next document that I'm going to talk about, which is the academic portfolio. The portfolio, you have 30 pages maximum. And again, if it's longer than that, we'll be sending it back and asking you to edit the document. But this can include many items. And so this is something that you can talk to your department chair and your faculty mentors about what to include. But some examples would be your teaching philosophy, example syllabi, example assignments or innovative assignments. It could be assessment tools like an exam or some other sort of assignment that you use in the class. This can include pedagogical presentations or publications. And one of the things people ask is like, well, as I mentioned earlier, is like, well, I do a little bit of all 3 areas. I do teaching, I do service, and I do a little bit of publication and research. You can put that in your teaching philosophy. A lot of times when folks do sort of all 3 of those things as teaching faculty, it's probably because you presented at OTL or you went to a conference and did a teaching presentation. And so this is a good place to put that information. Or another example is that folks have written textbooks, and you can talk about that within your academic portfolio. You should also provide evidence of excellence, because that's what everyone's evaluating about your teaching. And so examples of how to assess that would be your midterm assessment plan, the famous maps that OTL is always emailing us about, which is an incredibly useful tool. You could include peer reviews of your teaching. You can include your qualitative set comments from students. You can include letters from students that they've written to you, and any other sort of evidence that you've succeeded. Like when my tenure packet went up, tenure and promotion packet went up, I had advised many graduate students, and I directed a competitive speech and debate team. And a lot of those students had graduated and gone on to great careers in the world. And so I created a list saying, here's all the students that I've worked with and mentored, and here's where their careers have gone, as evidence of the success from my coaching and teaching of all those folks. But there's a lot of ways you can demonstrate your excellence and document that. The next item that you need is a longitudinal set score report. This is something that's generated by your department, and so you'll get to see it, but it's not something that you produce yourself. This is different than the individual set reports that you get every semester at the end of the term, or I guess in the beginning of the next term, but it's different than your individual set reports. In the packet, I include an example of a longitudinal set score at the end of the guidelines section. And so you can see an example of it, but it includes 5 to 6 years of your scores on what we call the 3 global questions that we generally get quantitative reports on. Now, one other item, the reason I say you have 4 to 5 items that you have to put together for most folks is that there is also a miscellaneous section in the Smart Path system. And you can put additional materials here, but I caution you on 2 things. One, do not use this as a place to include additional teaching materials that you could not fit within the 30 pages of the portfolio. That is an inappropriate use of this space. But it can be a very useful space if you have documentations of other parts of your career that do not fit in research, they do not fit in teaching, or any other materials. And I'll give you a few examples of this. You might have hosted a major event at Wayne State, and you happen to have a flyer of it and it has your name and gives you credit for it. Well, you can put that in the miscellaneous information. If you've got, like, as I mentioned in my example, as the director of a program. And so I had all sorts of material about kind of what it is that the director has to do, what are their responsibilities, what's their day-to-day like. And so I created a packet of information about that I stuck in the miscellaneous section because it didn't fit anywhere else in my documentation. But be very cautious with this. And again, this is something you should talk to your department chair and your faculty mentor about, as you're saying, well, I've got this stuff, I don't know if it fits in teaching or it should go somewhere else. It may very well go in miscellaneous. Now, for the folks that are going up for creative and research work, there are 2 additional items. One is a numbered list of publications or creative works. And as I said, this probably, excuse me, this doesn't apply to most people, but you want to first be selective about what works you want to present to evaluators, because you just really want to present sort of your best items that you think really define your career. And that can be across your whole career. I talked to the provost the other day about this, but it doesn't have to just be Wayne State materials. But if you have a really important publication that you had come out right before you came to Wayne State that you think helps explain the development of your research across your career, it is possible to include that within your list of publications and the example publications that you provide. But the list itself is just where you document the items that they're going to find in the next item that I talk about. And so your list should include full citation information, not just a list of URL links. If it's research scholarship, include the full citation. If it's an article, include an electronic link to the article rather than hard copies. If you know the impact factors or selectivity of the journals or any other measurements of excellence, include that. And for creative works, It's the same thing. If you have any information about the selectivity of the venue that your work is going to, or any other measures of excellence included. And one thing that was asked at the tenure meeting that I recently hosted was, well, what if my discipline primarily uses peer-reviewed materials rather than highly selective, I'm sorry, that they use public journals that really aren't peer-reviewed? And there's an important reason for that. And you can definitely include those. Like, not every item on your list needs to be the highest caliber journal in your field that has been extensively peer reviewed. What you want to do is identify, you always want to have sort of at least one sort of work that you really think is the best work that you've ever done in terms of its quality, sort of the stature, the venue, publication that's come from. And then the other items on your list, really, you want to be things that nicely define you as a scholar or creative, or as somebody that does creative work. And so that guides your decision on that. But again, this is something to talk to your chair and faculty mentors about, what you want to exactly include. And for folks that do creative work with this list, do not make assumptions about anything for your reviewers. If you've got an image, describe the image and include any information about the work, because it can be really confusing for reviewers to flip from, like, there's one page that has a picture of the work and like a URL link, and then the work is described somewhere else. So make it as easy as possible with your reviewers with the list, that you include sort of like the full information they'll need about the work, like its title, what it is exactly, like what medium is it, anything like that, so that your reviewers aren't sort of annoyed having to flip back and forth between elements of your packet. And then the next item that the creative and research folks need is the actual selected publications of creative works. SmartPath allows you to upload up to 20 items, but I do not recommend that. But be selective. What's your best works in terms of quality, and what's your best works in terms of what defines your career? And then for everybody, there is one item that Wayne State requires, an additional item, which, regardless if you're going up for research or creative works, is an external funded research creative works spreadsheet. There's an example of it in the packet after the longitudinal set score sheet. For a lot of folks, we just put none, and that's all that we include on that particular document. But if you have received external funding for work that you've done, you do list it on this particular spreadsheet and include it with your materials. And I do want to show real quick for everyone. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see, I guess I have to open this. Oh, there it is. So I want to show, well, this is the list of items that I just spoke about, but I do want to show you this, which is SmartPath. And this is what the administrators see on our end of things. And so the very top section here, the first like 5 items or so are taken care of by your office manager. And that creates basically a request for promotion. Then you're going to receive email that ask you to go in and add these documents that are highlighted in red. And it's all the items that I just spoke about. The rest of the items on this page then represent kind of where documents come in through the rest of the process. So underneath the red highlighted area is where your evaluation letters come in. Then there is the departmental committee review in the next column. Then there's the chair's letter. Then there's the dean's office kind of information and the college review information. You'll never see the rest of these columns, but I wanted you to see kind of what the system looks like behind the scenes, and that Robin and I can see all of this, and the office managers see a lot of this as well. And so one of the things that may happen during the process, and you just need to be patient about it, is as we're reviewing your materials, we may send stuff back. It's a rather normal thing. And it isn't that we are trying to be difficult, but a couple of things are happening when we send documents back to you. One might be through the course of reviewing your material, we think, oh, if you just added another sentence or two or included an example of something, this would be such a stronger case for promotion. So we might very well bounce things back to you. And when we do, it'll go back to your office administrator, who will then reach out to you and say, the college has asked that you do this. And another thing that might happen is, as we're reviewing materials, we realize you've included 32 pages instead of 30, that your personal statement is 7 pages instead of 5, or your professional record is not in the right format. And so we do a lot of problem solving early in the process so that the provost office doesn't kick these documents back to us kind of at the 11th hour. And so do not be frustrated or think it's a sign of the quality of your promotion case if any of your documents get sent back to you. Okay, that's not the case at all. It's, again, we're trying to be helpful, and we're trying to help you present the best case possible in the correct format. So let's see, where am I at in my notes? Yeah, I just spoke about that. Also in the packet, I've provided you a P&T cover sheet. It's like a bunch of check boxes. And you really don't need this as a faculty member, but I like to include it for you just to see sort of like your list of tasks that you need to deal with. And they're all the items that I've talked about today. And then I've included some FAQs at the end of the packet that just answer some questions that we have frequently received. Again, this is a new process, so we don't quite have frequently asked questions yet, as it's only been 1 year. And so some of the items I borrowed from the tenure track FAQs, because there's dozens of questions about how to list research and creative works. And so you'll note at points in the FAQ, there's a lot of discussion about research and creative works that may not interest you, but there's other items discussed in the FAQ that you might find useful. And just a few, well, I guess I want to talk next about the general differences between promotion to associate from full professor. And the first thing you should do is definitely start with your department or university factors. For some of the departments, I don't know that they have departmental factors for teaching faculty, but the university factors, frankly, are pretty good. And so you want to start with those, because there will be sections in the factors that explain the difference for going up for associate or the difference for going up for full. And so always start there. And in your talk with your chair and your faculty mentors, that should be the first document that everyone's talking about. The standard for promotion to associate is excellence in the 2 areas that you have selected. And as I said, there's a lot of ways to measure and to make arguments as to why you're excellent in 2 areas. This is really recognition of your work as comparable to peers at a similar level in their career. Now, I said earlier we don't compare cases. And what I mean by that is if we have 4 teaching faculty going up for promotion in a department, the department is not going to compare you against the other 3 people in your department. However, external evaluators, internal evaluators, and even other committees will often think about, well, if somebody's been at this stage in their career and they want to go up for full, go up for associate, what would we expect? And so there's thought about what that would be, and then are you demonstrating excellence in meeting that area? And those are defined in the factors, so this is not a guessing game, but that's generally the idea that you're attempting to do for go up for associate. But that's a very broad explanation of it, and you should always defer to your department about what they expect you to do to reach excellence. For folks going up for promotion to full, this is really about your leadership and your national and international reputation. Just an easy way to think about this is you should lap yourself in work compared to what you did to reach the rank of associate, which is a little odd given the way that the CBA created these titles, because some of you may automatically became associate based on your time at Wayne State, but just sort of think about what you've done up to that point to receive the level that you were as a lecturer and now associate professor, and how has your career evolved from that work that you did up to that point. And so it might be that you're much more involved in sort of key service in your department, or college service, or perhaps university service. It might also be that you're doing more work with external organizations and that you have demonstrated your significance to those events and those organizations. And so there's lots of ways that you can demonstrate that you have a reputation that's worthy of promotion and that you've provided leadership. And kind of to summarize that section is just your personal statements and all the documents that you present are really just evidence to demonstrate your excellence or your leadership and the development of your career over time, to demonstrate why it's worthy for promotion to whichever rank you're going up for. Just a few items of advice that I've learned from the dean, my experience with PNT processes and other administrators that I've spoken to. Again, write for multiple audiences, because you're going to have all kinds of people looking at your documents, and they will not be specific to your discipline. Second, seek input from people on your professional record, your personal statement, and your teaching portfolio. You can even ask for examples of, and because most departments have had at least one or two people apply for promotion to full, that there's some materials. But if your department doesn't have those examples, feel free to ask or to ask your chair to reach out to other departments and see if they're willing to share examples of their materials. Also, try to be visible in the university where possible. That means service opportunities, but showing up to events. This gives kind of potential reviewers an awareness of who you are, which I find helpful. Now, I know I said earlier, you want to be at arm's length from people and not have close relationships with them for evaluators, but it's always good that people, if they receive a request, go, oh yeah, I'm aware of that person. They seem to do decent stuff. Yeah, I'll take on this case to evaluate. That's not a requirement that your evaluators know exactly who you are, but visibility is always incredibly useful for promotion. In fact, some of the reasons why a lot of us do some service is for that visibility and getting people to know who we are, so that when we go up for promotion, that they're aware of our work. And the last item, again, as a reminder from what I started kind of all of this with, is to give yourself time to work on this material. Tenure track faculty are mentored on this very early when they get hired, but this is an all new process for many of us with the teaching faculty. So start now to ask questions, begin gathering materials, and thinking about this process, because time will go fast by the time that you need to submit materials for this coming fall. And so don't wait too long to really get the ball rolling on that. So those are the notes that I have. I guess for the folks that are with me on the call, does anybody have any questions about anything that I've talked about?
I had a question going back to developing the 3 reviewers. And that one is WSU, can be WSU, and then 2 and 3 are outside of Wayne State. So let me ask you, Kelly, then, is this pretty much exactly the same criteria for tenure and promotion faculty, other than the selection of the reviewers?
Pretty much. I mean, the type of materials are a little different, because the teaching packet, for instance, for teaching faculty or for tenure track faculty is 20 pages, and the academic portfolio is 30 pages. So that's one minor difference. And then obviously, a lot of if folks aren't going up for research and creative work, then none of that is entered in the system. Just one clarification on the reviewers, though, is it is different. And I think the key difference in this process is the reviewer part. And what's made it really challenging for department chairs and PNT committees is that it's It's a minimum of one external and 3 total. So it's really at least 2 internal people.
Okay, thank you.
But some departments had great success in getting multiple people to review. So they might have had 2 external people and then like 4 internal people to Wayne State. The Wayne State Academy of boy, now I'm forgetting the name of it. And Doug and I are members of it. The Teaching Academy. They have folks that have volunteered to write evaluation letters, and so I know some departments utilize that as a resource to find some reviewers, and so that's really the chief difference.
Okay,
other than the fact that it's a brand new process, and for this year, a lot of folks just had questions and we weren't exactly sure how it was going to go. But otherwise, it operated in a very similar fashion.
Yeah, I also appreciated hearing the 98%-ish files are teaching and service. And not to monopolize my time, but with that taken, I know that we have someone who's going to be coming up who is doing just as much service as she's doing research, creative activity, publishing. How would I mentor her in making him her in terms of making that hard choice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's tough. I mean, I think there are some other cases of something like that. If, I guess it goes back to how that person wants to define themselves, and to display their career. I mean, it does sometimes require an unfortunate choice, but like I said, there are some places in which the scholarship can still be included if it informs teaching, if it operates like, I mentioned as examples pedagogical research or presentations, but it doesn't just have to be that. I know that we've had some files of folks that this is a slightly different example, but like their service really informs their teaching. And so things that they're helping folks with in the field, they bring back to the classroom to really teach their students about not only the field, but kind of the latest developments in whatever media they're working with. And so there's ways in which to kind of backdoor it into the discussion of teaching and service where appropriate. I mean, you still may lose some items. I'm using the example of research and creatives not included, but I think the same is true of service. It may be that a lot of the service in a way could operate as teaching. Like if they are directing a program that's really hands-on with students and is guiding how they're learning about the discipline and operating within the department, that might be part of the teaching discussion. And it might be that some of the service that they're doing helps inform the creative work that they're doing. So you can fit it into places. And some of it too can probably fit in the miscellaneous tab, but I don't want folks to use miscellaneous tab just to be like, haha, here's the third area. But there may be some things like if they've hosted a really outstanding event that's worthy of discussion in their other documents, then the miscellaneous section might be a good place to put some of that material.
Yeah, and I would imagine then I would probably advise them to try to choose either or, and then the or the not, whichever, gets discussed in the miscellaneous, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, don't use the miscellaneous entirely,
right.
But like I said, I think stuff can be fit in if, I don't know what the nature of the items are, but there's probably ways that some of it can be worked into some of the other places. And plus it'll be on, and it's actually, I said some of it gets lost, but that's actually incorrect because it's all on the professional record.
Yeah.
And so if people see stuff on the professional record, like I know from my experience with the college P&T committee, there's no way that we would just ignore that. Like that would be very much in the forefront of like, wow, that's really incredible that not only have they done all of this, but they've also done a lot in the third area. How are we going to work that in?
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. I forget that too, that
Yeah.
they're always going to see the professional record and that they can make of it externals or the reviewers rather can make
Yeah.
sense of it as they want to. That's
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah. Thanks for the questions.
You bet.
Mm-hmm. I know everybody else heard me talk a couple of days about this, so I don't know if there's any questions about the teaching faculty that's different than the tenure track promotion and tenure process. But as I identified in the beginning, it's a fairly similar process. So if faculty have questions, it's not a great deal of difference. I think the only thing that you'll find is that because we're still newly developing mentoring processes for teaching faculty, that they probably will have many more questions for you than perhaps the tenure track faculty.
I have one other question for you,
Okay.
Kelly, but I'm going to put it in an email.
Oh, well, you can
Because
ask now. I mean, there's no.
Well, I just don't know if I want to bring this sort of up to the whole
Okay,
group.
that's fine.
But
That's fine.
yeah,
Feel free to email me.
it's just this lingering little thing that I want some guidance for, just in terms of as a little bit of a clue. How well, at least from your understanding, do department chairs understand the significance of these newly implemented ways for our teaching professors to apply for, tenure and promotion? It's that sort of thing. I just want to
Fair
make
enough.
sure.
Fair enough. I mean, I just reminded in kind of informal conversation before administrative council this week with the chairs, and I was pretty happy to hear everybody had already had their conversations with folks. I think the one thing that we still need to do, and I'm going to email the chairs and talk to them this week about what exactly are the mentoring processes, because there's a couple of different ways we can start doing this better with the teaching faculty, which is annual review is one obvious place where those kind of conversations can happen, and people, the select salary committees look at professional records and they look at sort of the arc of someone's career. And so hopefully we can build something kind of onto a similar process, or have P&T committee meet and kind of chat about folks that they think or may want to go up, or perhaps suggest to people that they're ready to go up. One nice thing about these cases that I forgot to mention, and this is for everybody and not just Doug or for administrators, is that there's no harm in going up. Because if you get a rejection decision, that doesn't mean that you're not worthy of promotion. It just means that perhaps your materials aren't ready yet. And folks can go right back up the next year. There's no limit on how many times people go up for promotion. And all these committees change. And so, it's again a good point for the faculty to have a conversation with their chairs and their faculty mentors about kind of, does this seem like the right time? And, hopefully we're mentoring in a way that we don't waste those faculty's time and say, no, not just yet. Just wait a year, but you'll be good. And also following up with people that get rejection of saying, look, don't beat yourself up. You can go right back up. I think I think you just need to do a little bit of work in these areas and you'll be good to go up.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's for P&T that are for a tenure track faculty, it's a very different part. And so that is yet another critical difference for the teaching faculty process is, they can keep going up if assuming that they are improving their materials and doing sort of more impressive work. There's no reason why they can't keep applying. So. Any other questions? Well, I thank you all for joining me on a Friday, and I will be posting this on our college site for others to view.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks very much, Kelly.
Thank you.